core cultural differences in conflict styles. Communicating disagreement, and that is the vertical line that I want you to focus on there for a minute. So you either have direct patterns of communicating or you have indirect patterns of communicating. Direct says that I'm going to tell you exactly what it is that I want you to do or what's wrong. The message is right within the verbal message. Whatever I'm trying to tell you is right within the verbal message. The opposite of that is within communities that are what we call face-saving communities, and they use very indirect approaches to communicating the disagreement. So you might say, "Sir, what's wrong?" "Well, last week," and they'll start talking around whatever the issue is. Because they don't want to, in their cultural mind, they don't want to be too offensive. They don't want to be finger pointing. They don't want to cause you to lose face, nor do they want to lose face. So they're going to go around the point. And it's not explicit in the language. And the goal is that if I build enough relationship, that then we can talk about the point. Those are two opposite ways of communicating disagreement. Now the second one, the horizontal line, around how we express emotion during conflict. On the left-hand side is emotionally restrained ways of communicating disagreement. So during conflict, an emotionally restrained style will in fact use very little expression, both verbal expression or facial expression, other nonverbal expressions of emotion. So you simply won't see it. On the other hand, what will happen on the opposite end, emotionally expressive styles use outright expressions of emotion. So the dynamics that play out, and we're going to do a demonstration here in about 30 seconds, is that if I'm from an emotionally restrained culture, again, dominant U.S. culture, again, and I've run a number of police officers through this instrument. It'll measure your emotional restrained or your emotional response. Officers will tend to score in the emotionally restrained quadrant about 85 to 90% of the time. So what happens then for emotionally restrained styles is that if I see no emotion, that communicates that things are under control. Now you ask yourself if you've ever been an officer on the street, and when there's little emotion coming out of a suspect or an individual, doesn't even have to be a suspect, it's an individual you stop for a traffic stop. You asked earlier, in fact you said earlier when I asked what was the fourth population that was most challenging, you said Chinese. And Chinese, most Asian cultures, are very emotionally restrained. And so when you don't see emotion, then everything's cool. Everything's under control. And your trust then goes up when you don't see emotional responses. So flip that. When you see an emotional response coming from an individual at a traffic stop, an encounter or interaction with a citizen, and you see emotion, what's the first trigger in your head? Trouble. Things are getting out of control. Okay? And so your trust level goes down. Now let's flip it. You've got the individual who's been pulled over, and they're not sure why they've been pulled over. And if they are from an emotionally expressive cultural community, when they in fact see emotion, that's an immediate connection to them that says things are okay. In the high school, in the junior high school, and in the elementary school that I went to. There was this thing that went around that, ooh, there's that quiet kid over in the corner. Look out, don't mess with him. Because at any given moment, he's going to blow up. So you learned, these are culturally learned patterns of behavior, that when you see emotion, everything's fine. It's good, we've made the connection, we're okay. But when I don't see emotion, so now what's going on in their head? I'm the person sitting in the car. I don't see any emotion coming from the officer. What's going on in my head? So anything might happen. I feel scared. I got anxiety because I don't know what's going to happen next. And where does my trust level go? It goes down. So you've got the officer's trust level who's down. You've got the citizen whose trust level is down. And the opportunity for escalation is right there. There also is an opportunity for de-escalation.